It was 4:15 in the morning. The hour when the city still sleeps under a blanket of silence, broken only by the hum of streetlights. The air was crisp, smelling of damp asphalt and the faint promise of rain. For 40 years, this had been my hour. The hour of flour and yeast, of heat and rising dough. I walked up to the heavy oak door of Elena's artisan bakery, my breath forming small clouds in the cold air. I reached into my pocket for my brass key ring, the familiar weight of it comforting in my hand. I found the silver key, the one worn smooth by 4 decades of daily use. I slid it into the lock. It didn't turn. I frowned, jiggling it slightly. Sometimes the tumblers got sticky in the cold. I tried again, harder this time. Nothing. It felt like I was shoving the wrong key into the wrong door. I pulled it out and looked at the lock. It was shiny. New. A modern, digital keypad deadbolt had replaced my old mechanical lock. "Excuse me, ma'am." I jumped, spinning around. A large man, in a security uniform I didn't recognize, was standing on the sidewalk, holding a clipboard. "You can't be here," he said, his voice flat and bored. "Private property." "I know, it's private property," I snapped, the confusion quickly curdling into annoyance. "It's my property. I'm Elena. I own this bakery." The guard looked down at his clipboard, then back at me. "Elena Rossi?" "Yes." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a white envelope. "I was told to give you this if you showed up. You're not allowed inside." "Not allowed?" I laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. I started the sourdough starter in that kitchen before my son was even born. "Open the door." "I can't do that, ma'am. Orders from the owners, Mr. Julian Rossi and Mrs. Monica Rossi." The names hit me like a physical blow. Julian, my son, and Monica, his wife. I snatched the envelope from his hand. My fingers trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed on the bakery's letterhead. My letterhead. "Dear Elena, effective immediately, your services, as head baker, are no longer required. As majority shareholders of Rossi Bakery LLC, we have decided to move in a new strategic direction. That requires a modernized production team. Please consider this your formal notice of termination. Do not attempt to enter the premises. We will mail your personal effects to your home address. Regards, Julian and Monica." I stared at the paper. The words swam before my eyes. Terminated? From the bakery I built with my bare hands? By the son I had taught to knead dough, standing on a milk crate? I looked up at the guard, then through the large, plate glass window. Inside, the lights were on. I could see shadows moving in the back. Strangers. People I didn't know were touching my ovens, handling my bowls. They changed, the locks, I whispered. The reality finally, sinking in. You need to leave, ma'am, the guard said, taking a step forward. Or I call the cops. I turned and walked away, clutching the letter to my chest. I didn't go home. I sat on a park bench across the street, watching the sunrise paint the sky in colors. I was usually too busy baking to notice. How had I been so blind? The trap had been set 18 months ago. It started with a family dinner, just like in the Greek tragedies. Monica had cooked a dry roast chicken that needed salt. She and Julian had seated me at the head of the table, pouring me expensive wine. Mom, Julian had started taking my hand. You look tired. You're 64. You've been working 16-hour days since Dad died. You deserve a break. I love the work, I had protested. The bakery is my life. But it doesn't have to be your whole life, Monica chimed in, her eyes gleaming with that intense MBA school fervor she always had. Look, Julian and I want to help. We want to take the burden of the business side off your shoulders. The payroll, the taxes, the vendor contracts. You just bake. You be the creative soul and let us be the suits. They pitched it as a partnership. We would form a new LLC. They would take 51% ownership, so they could handle the legal and financial liability, protecting me from lawsuits. I would keep 49% and remain as the salaried founder and head baker for life. It's just paper, Mom, Julian had promised. His smile, so much like his father's. It just lets us protect the legacy you built. I signed. I signed because my knees hurt. I signed because I trusted the boy who used to cry when he dropped a cookie. For the first year, it was fine. Then, the changes started. First, it was the ingredients. The high-quality European butter I used was replaced with a cheap, watery domestic brand. The vanilla bean paste became artificial extract. Margins, Elena, Monica would say, when I complained, not calling me Mom anymore. We need to optimize the supply chain. Then, they fired Mrs. Gable, the counter lady, who had known every customer's name for 20 years. She was too slow, Julian argued. We need speed. Turn and burn. And then, last month, the rumors started. I heard whispers from the delivery drivers. Franchise. Private equity. I confronted them. Are you selling the bakery? We're exploring options for expansion, Monica had said vaguely. Don't worry, your pretty little head, about it. Just bake the bread. And now this. Locked out. Fired. I sat on that bench until the city fully woke up. At 9 in the morning, I watched a sleek black car pull up to the bakery. Julian got out, wearing a suit that cost more than my first oven. Monica followed, looking like a shark in heels. They high-fived the security guard and walked into my bakery as if they were royalty. A cold, hard rage began to crystallize in my chest. It replaced the shock. It replaced the heartbreak. I stood up. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to see Arthur. Arthur Weinstein had been my husband's lawyer since the 80s. His office smelled of old cigars and lemon polish. He was 70 years old, wore suspenders, and was the sharpest legal mind I knew. I threw the termination letter on his desk. They fired me, Arthur. My own son. Arthur read the letter, his bushy eyebrows knitting together. They have 51% of the LLC, Elena. Technically, they have the controlling vote. They can fire any employee. Even you. I know, I said, pacing the room. I know I was stupid to sign over the majority share. But isn't there anything? A clause? A loophole? Arthur leaned back in his chair, tenting his fingers. You signed the operating agreement for Rossi Bakery LLC 18 months ago. I remember reviewing it. It transferred the assets. The equipment, the brand, the recipes, the accounts. To the new entity. My heart sank. So that's it? I lost everything? Arthur stared at me for a long moment. Then, a slow, mischievous smile spread across his face. He stood up and walked over to a dusty filing cabinet in the corner. Elena, he said, rummaging through a drawer. Do you remember when you and your husband bought the building in '95? Of course. We scrimped and saved for 5 years for the down payment. And do you remember, he pulled out a thick, yellowed folder. That on my advice, you put the real estate deed into a separate family trust, not the business name? I blinked. I think so. You said it was to protect the building if the bakery ever got sued. Exactly, Arthur slammed the folder onto the desk. Dust motes danced in the sunlight. The building, 245 East Main Street, is owned by the Rossi Family Trust. You are the sole trustee. I stared at the folder. Okay. But what does that mean? Arthur opened the file and flipped through the pages. He looked up, his eyes twinkling. Did you ever sign a lease agreement with the new LLC? Did Julian or Monica ever ask you for a rental contract? I thought back. The mountains of paperwork. The tax forms. The LLC transfer. No, I said slowly. They said, since it was all in the family, we didn't need to worry about rent yet. They just paid the property taxes directly. Arthur threw his head back and laughed. A dry, cackling sound. Oh, the arrogance of MBAs. They were so focused on stealing the goose. They forgot to check who owned the nest. What are you saying, Arthur? I'm saying, he grinned, that Rossi Bakery LLC is currently occupying your building without a lease. In the eyes of the law, they are squatters. Or, at best, month-to-month tenants at will. He pulled a fresh sheet of paper from his drawer. And as the landlord, you have the right to terminate a tenancy at will. Well, usually, with 30 days' notice. But, he tapped a specific document. Since they are operating a commercial enterprise without a certificate of occupancy in the name of the LLC, and since they changed the locks on the landlord without providing a key, which is a fire code violation, you can shut them down immediately for safety inspections. He looked at me. Do you want to play nice, or do you want to play hardball? I thought of the security guard. I thought of the termination letter. I thought of the cheap butter. Arthur, I said. I want to scorch the earth. We spent the next 2 hours drafting documents. Then, Arthur made a call to a friend of his at the sheriff's department. At 2 in the afternoon, I returned to the bakery. This time, I wasn't alone. I was flanked by Arthur, 2 uniformed sheriff's deputies, and a locksmith. The security guard stepped forward, looking nervous. Ma'am, I told you. Step aside, son, one of the deputies said, his hand resting on his belt. We are here to assist the property owner in securing her building. The guard looked at the sheriff, then at me, and wisely stepped back. The locksmith went to work on the digital lock. Within 2 minutes, the door swung open. I walked in. The smell hit me first. Burnt sugar. They were burning the caramel. Amateurs. The bakery was buzzing. There were people in suits standing around with clipboards. Investors, I realized. Julian and Monica were in the center of the room, pointing at the walls, talking loudly. And we'll knock out this wall to expand the seating area for the coffee bar, Monica was saying. We want a Starbucks vibe, but authentic. Excuse me, I said, my voice cutting through the noise like a serrated knife. The room went silent. Julian spun around. His face went pale when he saw the police. Mom? He forced a laugh, glancing nervously at the investors. What is this? I told you we're in a meeting. We can talk later. There won't be a later, Julian, I said, stepping further into the room. Monica marched over, her heels clicking aggressively on the tile. This is harassment, Elena. We own this business. You are trespassing. Officer, remove this woman. Arthur stepped forward, adjusting his suspenders. Actually, Mrs. Rossi, you are the ones trespassing. He handed Monica a stack of papers. My client, Elena Rossi, is the sole owner of this building. Rossi Bakery LLC has no valid lease agreement. Furthermore, by changing the locks and denying access to the landlord, you have violated state commercial property codes. Monica scanned the papers, her face turning a blotchy red. This is ridiculous. We own the company. The company is in the building. The company, Arthur corrected, is occupying the building. Illegally. As of this moment, your tenancy is terminated. You can't do this. Julian shouted. We have investors here. We're signing the franchise deal today. I looked at the group of suits in the corner. They looked uncomfortable, shuffling their feet. I wouldn't sign anything if I were you, I told them. Unless you plan on baking cupcakes on the sidewalk. Because as of right now, this business has no location. One of the investors, a tall man with gray hair, stepped forward. Is this true? You don't own the real estate? Julian stammered. It's a technicality. My mother owns it, but it's all the same family. It is not the same, I said coldly. I am evicting you. You have 24 hours to remove your equipment and vacate my premises. Mom, please, Julian hissed, dropping his voice. Don't do this. You're humiliating us. You humiliated yourself, I replied. When you fired me from the legacy I built for you. Monica threw the papers on the floor. We're not leaving. We have rights. We put money into this place. Then you can explain that to the judge, Arthur said. Deputies? The officers stepped forward. Folks, you need to clear the building. The owner wants to secure the property. If you don't leave, we'll have to escort you out for trespassing. It was chaos. The investors fled like rats from a sinking ship. The staff, the new ones, I didn't know, grabbed their bags and ran. Julian and Monica stood there, alone in the middle of the empty bakery. You're ruining your own son, Monica spat, tears of rage in her eyes. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, Monica, I said. Feeling a deep, ancient exhaustion settle over me. I'm heartbroken. But I'm also the landlord. Get out. They left. I stood in the silence of the bakery. The air still smelled of burnt sugar. I walked over to the oven, turned it off, and sat down on a flour sack. I cried then. I cried for the son I had lost to greed. I cried for the business that had been torn apart. But Arthur was right. I had scorched the earth. The next few months were a legal war. Julian and Monica sued me, of course. They claimed constructive trust and implied lease. But Arthur destroyed them in court. Without a written lease, and with the clear deed in the trust's name. They had no leg to stand on. The franchise deal collapsed instantly. No investor wanted to touch a bakery that had no kitchen. Rossi Bakery LLC went bankrupt 3 months later. They had taken out massive loans to pay for the rebranding and the consultants, banking on the franchise money to pay it back. When that dried up, the bank came for everything. Their house, their cars, their savings. I didn't take the bakery back. Not exactly. I dissolved the old brand. I took down the Rossi sign. I opened a new place. Smaller. Just bread and coffee. I called it Elena's. I hired Mrs. Gable back. We used the good butter. 6 months later, on a rainy Tuesday, the back door bell rang. I opened it. Julian was standing there. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. His fancy suit was gone, replaced by jeans and a faded t-shirt. Hi, Mom, he said, looking at his shoes. Hello, Julian. Monica left me, he said quietly. She went back to her parents in Chicago. Blamed me for everything. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I'm broke, Mom. I'm sleeping on a friend's couch. I applied at the factory, but they aren't hiring. He looked up, his eyes red. I was wondering. Do you need help? I can work the register. Or manage the inventory. I looked at him. I saw the arrogance was gone, scraped away by failure. But I also saw the man who had handed me a termination letter. I don't need a manager, Julian, I said. And I don't need a partner. His shoulders slumped. Okay. I understand. He turned to leave. But, I said. He stopped. The dishwasher quit yesterday. It pays minimum wage. And you don't touch the dough. You don't touch the books. You wash dishes, and you sweep the floor. He turned back slowly. He looked at the warm glow of the bakery, then at me. I'll take it, he whispered. Aprons are in the back, I said, turning away to check my sourdough. Don't be late. It wasn't a happy ending. We didn't hug. We didn't laugh. But as I listened to the clatter of dishes being washed in the back, I knew the balance had been restored. He was learning the lesson I should have taught him years ago. You don't inherit respect. You earn it, one scrubbed plate at a time.